Ah, the joys of post-coital sleep. That's what allowed me to handcuff my wife's hand to our custom handcrafted ashwood headboard. She didn't wake up right away. She cautiously opened her eyes and then cried out. Her scream woke her lover, Bob Simmons, who quickly discovered that his wrist was also handcuffed. Bob's scream was a little more manly as he fell off the bed, twisting his arm and cutting his wrist. He scrambled back onto the bed, the words he was about to say stuck in his throat. I'm guessing that upon waking up, your mistress' husband standing at the foot of the bed with a large caliber revolver pointed at you will do it. Did you guys sleep well? I asked. My God, Jerry. It's not what it looks like, sobbed my wife. Well, let's figure out what it looks like. I said you're lying in our marital bed with a stranger trying to convince me that you're a faithful little wife. Don't do anything stupid. Bob wheezed. You don't go to jail over a cheating wife. His eyes were still fixed on the .35 Magnum in my hands. That made sense as I was shaking a little with rage and sadness. Here comes the man you decided to leave me for. If you were still my wife, I'd have to defend your honor, but since it doesn't look like it's going to matter anytime soon, I really don't care. Interesting that he still thinks so highly of you. I replied. Barb ignored both of our comments. Jerry, please put the revolver down, and let's talk about this. That shithead isn't worth going to jail for, she pleaded. Wow. I guess the rose has really bloomed in this relationship. He calls you names and you call him names. I thought you would treat him with more respect. After all, he's the one you thought it was worth separating us for. I replied, sadly, Jerry, we're not breaking up. I screwed up big time, but we can get through this. I'll fix it, I promise. She sobbed. How are you going to do that? Are you going to go back in time and not sleep with him? Because that's the only way I can have anything to do with you in the future. I loved you so much. My life would be hell if that happened. I don't want to go back to that place again, but if the alternative is to live with an unfaithful bitch, what are my options? I asked. I put the revolver to my temple. Maybe it would be easiest to just pull the trigger like this. I'd end the pain and you'd be free. Jerry, no. She screamed. Do it. He shouted. I slowly lowered the revolver. An idea hit me. I opened the drum of the revolver and pressed the piston to release 6 rounds. They fell to the floor. I bent down and picked one up. I heard a grunt as the asshole tried to break the headboard it was attached to and failed. What a loser. He calmed down when I picked up the lone cartridge. There was a look of horror on Barb's face. It's a .35 Magnum round that weighs 125 grams. When the bullet leaves the barrel of this revolver, it travels at 1,500 feet per second. When it hits something hard, it flattens out and nearly triples the area of impact it can damage. Even if you survive the impact, it will certainly create a wound that will make you bleed to death, I said, making sure I had their attention. I inserted the cartridge into the drum. Barb, you know how much I loved to gamble before we met. In fact, it nearly ruined us in our first few years together. I stopped for you. Don't get me wrong, I benefited from stopping. But I only had the strength to quit because I loved you so much, I said, sadly. I tilted the revolver back a little and spun the drum, while it was still spinning when I flicked my wrist and slid the drum back into the revolver. Since I really don't know what to do, I'll let chance decide, the finger of fate, if you will. I said. I slowly pointed the revolver at her lover. Since Bob is the guest of honor here, I feel I should start with him. Would you like me to record something for your wife or daughters, Bob? I asked. It's going to be very lonely in the house at 726 Maple Lane if you end up eating that bullet, Bob. Your wife, Allison, and your twin daughters, Zoe and Chloe, will be devastated enough when they see the package my investigator sent them. I thought about sending some less pornographic pictures, but decided that your girls need to know exactly what you were doing late at night at the office. I also took the liberty of including pictures of your other 2 slots just so she gets the full picture. I didn't think he could get any whiter, but when I pointed the revolver at him, he paled even more. I cocked the hammer back. He closed his eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. I thought he was going to faint, but he came to his senses. Sure enough, the sheet around him started to turn yellow as he wet himself. You survived this round. Maybe you'll see your pretty daughters again. I replied calmly. I pointed the revolver at my wife. How about you, Barb? Are you ready to meet your maker? You went to church last Sunday. I assume you confessed your sins. If you die today without being able to confess, will you go to heaven, or will you still go to hell? Unless things have changed, is adultery still considered a sin in your religion? I asked her. Yes, she whispered with her eyes closed. I'm sorry. What did you say? I asked her. Yes, Jerry, adultery is a sin. It's a sin against your spouse. And it's a sin against God. I never admitted to what I did. I'm going to hell if that bullet hits me, she said. Well, let's see if your God wants you to live. I replied, pulling the trigger back. I squeezed the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. She sobbed as I aimed the revolver at my temple again. I was in such a dark place before you came into my life, Barb. I told her. The only time I ever felt any good was when I was on that winning streak. It was never about the money. It was all about the excitement. I remember thinking about how kind and gentle you were as you worked my hands that night in the emergency room. Gino's thugs really did something to me. I told myself that if I had a caring woman like you in my life, I wouldn't need to play. Did I ever tell you that it was the memory of hands bandaging mine that made me stop? I paid off Gino that night, and to this day, I have never gambled again. I know that life without you will be hell. You're my rock. If that bullet hits me, my suffering will end. You won't be able to hurt me anymore. I almost want that to happen. I told her quietly. She sobbed as I pulled the trigger of the revolver again. Click. The hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. My wife screamed. Damn it. Bob cursed. I pointed the revolver at my lover. Since this may well be your last moments on earth, Bob, please tell me why you go after married women. I really don't understand it. Your wife is attractive and your daughter seems charming. Why? I asked. Please, boy, don't kill me. He begged. I shrugged and pulled the trigger back with my thumb. He suddenly burst into tears. It's all about the chase, finding what turns them on, and then playing them off. Your wife was a little displeased with you. In any married life, even a very good one, there are rough edges and mutual grievances. All I had to do was emphasize a little bit how helpful and sexy she was, and she lusted after me. Anyway, this was going to be the last time. Once I fuck another man's wife in her husband's bed, the game is over and I win. He sobbed. This guy looked like he was in some kind of trouble. He looked pretty pathetic lying on the dirty sheets. I should have taken a picture, but I didn't want any compromising evidence. I heard him groan, trying to break the headboard of the bed again. I looked into his eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. The asshole lost consciousness. I raised the revolver and pointed it at my wife. Well, it's either you or me. I'm a little sad. My lover dodged a bullet. I love you, Barb. I almost hope it wasn't you. Things would be a lot cleaner if I came home, found you two in bed, and then couldn't take it and killed myself. You'd be alive. I wouldn't have to deal with the murder. All that pain would be gone, and you'd be free to fuck whoever the hell you wanted, I told her, sadly. She tried to remain calm. At this point, we were both hanging by a thread. Jerry, please stop this. You've made your point. Bob passed out from fear sitting in his own urine. You win. Put the gun down, and we can convince Bob not to press charges. You didn't do anything that can't be undone. I want to stay with you, but if you put the gun down, I promise to sign any divorce decree you present to me. If I can convince you to leave me, I'll spend every day atoning for my sins. Please don't do this, juror. She begged. Barb? I don't think I'm Jerry anymore. When I found out what you were doing, I was so angry, and then I found out you did it in my bed. Well, something inside me died. I think right now, I'm the finger of fate. Let's see if it's your time, shall we? I pulled the hammer back with my thumb. I pulled the trigger. Click, the hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. Barb began to roar as I pointed the revolver at my head. Looks like fate has decided. I love you, Barb. I'm sorry it's come to this. I hope you find happiness, I said, slowly pulling the trigger. Jerry, please don't, she screamed, trying to break the headboard she was handcuffed to. I'll leave or I'll stay, and you can beat me senseless. Please don't do this. Oh, God. Help. Help, she screamed. It's better this way, Barb. I love you, I said, sadly. I closed my eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on the empty cartridge case. I guess I should explain. You can see that as a player, I'm pretty good with my fingers. Gino mangled my left hand, but my right hand was still pretty good. Card tricks, shuffling chips, and coin flips all develop your dexterity, so getting a cartridge out of a revolver's drum isn't that hard. Especially when your audience is focused on the barrel. Tilting the revolver backwards to turn the cylinder gave me enough cover to remove the car from the revolver and put it in the palm of my hand. After that, it was all a game. Why? Because I wanted them to feel fear and pain, but I wasn't prepared for the ordeal for these assholes. Back to our story. I laughed so hard when I saw the look on my wife's face. What, slut? Did you really think I was going to jail because of you too? I managed to choke out, trying to catch my breath. Still laughing, I bent down and picked up all 6 rounds of ammo from the floor. I loaded the revolver for real this time. There was no point in taking any chances. I tossed the key to the handcuffs to my wife. She was sobbing and seemed to be panting slightly. Jerk Bob was coming to his senses. Bob was still sobbing and made no move to pick up the key. I noticed that Bob was focused on the key, but was looking at me, contemplating what he should do. Take the key, asshole. Get your clothes and get out of here. I told him. Think of it as a lesson learned, Bob. Right now, you're allowed to live, but if I hear anything from the cops about today, I'll kill you and your family in the most painful way possible. If you keep your mouth shut, it will save not only you, but your wife and kids as well. I told him in my most serious tone. Would I really do that? Hell, no, but I hope Bob thought I was being serious. Otherwise, I could have gone to jail for more than a few years. When all was said and done, Bob never said a word about what happened. Barb was devastated, but signed the divorce papers without any complaints. It helped that it was a pretty fair deal in terms of money. The only thing I asked for was my grandmother's wedding ring and that she get her maiden name back. She moved to Grand Rapids and sends me birthday wishes on Facebook. It doesn't look like she's dating, but I don't look at her social media page. I wasn't kidding when I said I loved her. I still get furious sometimes about what she did to me, but I've moved on. There are more good days than bad, and there are already a few women I'm friends with benefits. Bob is divorced. And the last thing I know about him is that he lives in a shitty 1-bedroom apartment, paying spousal and child support that has nearly broken him. I sent him one instant message before he blocked me. I texted him that if he wanted to end it, he could borrow my revolver.